From the creators of the hit kids podcast Who Smarted and Netflix Brainchild comes the adventurous world of mysteries about true histories, affectionately known as math. Every episode follows Max and Molly, who've just been recruited into a secret order of problem solvers on an adventure through time, packed with puzzles, hidden equations, history, and laughs, making learning cool. It's perfect for ages 6 and up, and new episodes drop every Thursday, each stacked with so much laughter that your kiddos won't even realize how much they're learning. Episodes are about 15 minutes, the perfect length for car rides, meal times, break times, and bedtime. Every episode follows two best friends, Max and Molly, and they work together to solve riddles and math equations during their time-traveling adventures. Episodes transport listeners to moments in history like Pythagoras' ancient Greece, the era of the Aztecs, Sir Isaac Newton's England, and more. The goal of math is to weave humor and education together so that kids won't even realize they're learning. We loved Who Smarted, so tune in to Mysteries About True Histories with your kids, and you can follow and listen on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pods. It's sure to please your family as much as it's pleased ours.
I talk a lot about being a seed planter. And a lot of times when we're saying these things to our kids during graduation, they're going to be like, oh my God, Mom, here you go again. They need to hear it. They need to hear the things that you want to say to them. They need to hear how much you love them.
Welcome to Season 6 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we talk about a family's anxiety and all the big feelings, too. We tackle the serious stuff without being too serious, and I'm your co-host, Robin. I'm Lynn's sister-in-law, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, speaker, mom, and author, and I've been a therapist for over 30 years. Parenting can be a Flusterclux, and I'm here to help you find your way. I'll give you concrete steps to take and the words to say.
So, Lynn, it's the beginning of May, and you always say that this is the toughest month of the year for so many of your clients and that things just go off the rails. And that never really resonated with me. And then here I am, and the tears are already coming. Yeah. I'm a mom of a high school senior, and it's so interesting as I feel so emotional.
Yeah.
Why?
You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming. And it's so funny. Your brother, who's my husband, I was like, you don't seem to be very emotional yet. And he starts giving me like all of these very pragmatic reasons to celebrate or to be. And I just look at him like, yeah, it hasn't hit you yet.
Yeah.
And we know it will.
Yeah.
We have these transitions because I'm sure you also have experienced the college graduation, which may or may not feel the same way.
Well, mine were weird, remember, too, is that my older son was going to graduate in the spring of COVID, and his graduation got canceled. And so then they postponed it for 2 years, actually. And so I had 2 graduations within the course of a month. It was just a very weird college graduation time. But high school graduation, oh my God. I was like you. Anything that remotely hit upon goodbye in any way just destroyed me.
So first of all, if you listen to our podcast, Lynn and I are very admittedly easy criers.
And sympathetic criers.
Yeah, absolutely. So yesterday I was booking an eye exam and I was looking at my summer calendar and I was like, okay, what about the week of August 20th? I know I'll be home because my daughter goes off to college the next week. And then I'm already crying to the receptionist at the place. And so here's the thing. I've always embraced connection and the power of now and making moments count. And of course, no parent makes every moment count. And I have a close relationship with my daughter as well. And I can be so excited to launch her. She's ready to launch, and that means I and my husband did a good job of raising someone independent and everything. So here's the thing that I think is the hardest to accept. I can look forward to things that I'm excited about for her, and I am grateful I'm in that situation because I know there are many other ways that parents can be thinking about this, but I can't control the fact that the chapter with the four of us home together is over. And I can't stop that. So now you're crying too. Right, because it's a very special time when you're raising your kids together. And then no matter how close you are, even as they're adults, you just have to grieve the loss of that chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you're saying, I think, is so accurate. You feel very grateful. You feel a sense of pride. You feel a sense of accomplishment. You're excited for her. This is the way that you hoped it would go, that she would go off and do her wonderful things. And so there's all of that. But then there's letting go of something, right? Whenever we're choosing one thing, we're letting go of something else. So for her to choose to launch, for her to go off, it means that she's letting go of something else. And even as parents, for us to choose to allow our kids to go off and do something, it means that we're also choosing to let them go and that there's a loss in that. It's just a very emotional time, Robin.
I don't feel like we're choosing that, though. I mean, it just happens.
Yeah, but you made 82 million choices along the way that are allowing this to happen.
Right. My daughter and I are driving in the car the other day back from being in downtown Boston. And she has said, like, no, I feel really ready to go in a good way, not like see ya suckers or anything. She's like, I'm looking forward to this. I feel ready. So we were driving home and she started just like being really critical of her brother in a very atypical way and was kind of spiraling. And they're very close. They have a lovely friendship. So she's like really kind of going off on him.
Yeah. He wasn't in the car.
He wasn't in the car. And so I said to her, like, hey, slow down a second, because you've got a lot of emotions here. And I think that you are covering up how sad you feel that he, who is 12, is going to grow up a lot that you are not witnessing in the same way. I think that this is the way that you are grieving, separating from him. This is about you leaving. And for the first time, then she starts crying. And then Landslide comes on the radio.
Right. And just prepare yourself. It's just going to be constant.
Oh.
Honestly, every mention, every step, every ritual, every celebration, I was crying.
We'll take a break and go wipe our eyes. Lynn, although we don't have a lot of guests, I love that you have curated the guests who are the best on their topic.
One of the things that I really enjoy is talking to people who are really good at what they do because they just have so much information to share. And that's what you get with Masterclass. You're actually learning from people who have expertise, knowledge. I will tell you, I watched the class of Bobbi Brown and how to put on makeup, not something I'm good at. So instructive.
So this year, you can learn from the best to become your best with Masterclass with over 180 world-class instructors. So whether you want to master negotiation, makeup application, or interior design, Masterclass has you covered.
With Masterclass, you get unlimited access to intimate one-on-one classes with the world's best. There are over 200 classes to pick from. New classes added every month.
And every membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk.
And right now, our listeners will get an additional 15% off an annual membership at masterclass.com/fluster. Get 15% off right now at masterclass.com/fluster.
That's masterclass.com/fluster.
I really have to pay attention to hydrating properly. I work out a lot. I talk all the time, as you know. I am pretty active and I don't drink enough water. So I'm constantly thinking about how it is that I am going to hydrate in the best way possible. And I'll tell you, if my water has a little bit of flavor, it's so much easier for me. And if I can get those electrolytes, if I can get more bang for my buck, it's just so much better. I have been using Liquid IV. I put it into a huge glass. I put it into the refrigerator. It's cold. It's very tasty. I've been putting it in my water bottle when I go to the gym. The packaging is so convenient. I actually look forward to drinking it, which is not something that comes naturally to me. I love the lemon lime flavor. They've got a sugar-free option that is really great. So I think that if you're somebody like me that has a difficult time getting in the amount of hydration that you need for your body, Liquid IV is a great option. One stick, 16 ounces of water, it hydrates better than water alone. It's got 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, and it doesn't have all that sugar. It doesn't have artificial sweeteners. 8 vitamins and nutrients just for your everyday wellness. It's non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. However you hydrate, grab your Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier, sugar-free in bulk, nationwide at Costco, or get 20% off your first order when you go to liquidiv.com and use code Fluster at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code Fluster at liquidiv.com.
Have you heard of Kelly Corrigan? She's written 4 New York Times bestsellers, and she hosts a great interview show on PBS. She's been on the Today Show a bunch, and Oprah Magazine calls Kelly the voice of a generation. So recently on her podcast, Kelly teamed up with Christy Turlington Burns for a special series talking to icons like Bono, Spike Lee, Jennifer Garner, Amy Schumer, and Cindy Crawford about their mothers. They shared tender and candid and often really funny family stories that will help you reflect on your own childhood in new ways. So don't miss these magical conversations on the Kelly Corrigan Wonders podcast. Listen to Kelly Corrigan Wonders wherever you're listening to podcasts.
Okay, we're back.
So, Lynn, when we think about our parenting journey, one of the things that I think about is regret management is a term that you use. And I think about situations where there are regrets here too. Parents who, in addition to the grief of this one chapter going into the next, there are other layers of regret that could be added here as well. Like, I feel like I never really got that close, or the relationship, I wish we'd gotten along better, or all of those things, which I know really complicate it.
Well, and let me just tell you, because I'm on the other side of this. So my kids have both graduated from college now. This is a big move. You're exactly right. The foursome not being a foursome. I got a little reprieve of that because COVID hit when my boys were in college and they both came home. And I will tell you selfishly, like, COVID was terrible, but I was like, hey, they're back in my house. I mean, it feels good. But this next chapter is also a chapter of wonderful connection and watching them do amazing things. And particularly when they're in college, everybody. So for those of you who have seniors that are going off to college, they are home a lot. They are home a lot. They don't go to college all that much. For the amount of money you pay, they are home a lot. It's true. You're like, oh my God, wait, your semester is over? You will see them for sure. The crying, these are like tears of transition because you're going into another stage, another chapter of your relationship, which is wonderful. It really is. Like, as they go off and explore the world and have different relationships, and you have conversations with them that are so different than the conversations you had with them when they were in high school, because now they're creating their own lives out there. It really is a wonderful, wonderful chapter. Robin and I are such criers. Every emotion causes us to cry. Cry when we're sad. We cry when we're mad. We cry when something touches us. These are just tears of transition. And it's so, so real. I think I've said before, when I dropped my younger son off at college and my husband was driving the car back and I was flying home because he was far away, I came home, and before my husband got home, because he was behind me, obviously, I watched Steel Magnolias. On purpose, I wanted to bawl my eyes out. It's sort of like you purposely choosing to just listen to Landslide on repeat. That was just a coincidence. I purposely chose to watch Steel Magnolias.
Can we just pause, though? If you had watched Caddyshack, you still would have sobbed.
I know.
So,
yeah, I would have been bawling when the yacht drove into the country club. It's an accumulation of years and years and years of parenting and loving and creating and going through all these steps. Robin, and I don't know if you had this experience, but everybody knows I used to teach in a gym. I used to teach spinning. And when my kids were little, I wasn't working full time and I was going to the gym a lot. And in Concord, the first day of school, all the moms that dropped their kids off at kindergarten would come into my spin class and we'd just all bawl. Because they had dropped their kids off at kindergarten. That's the transitions that we're making all the time.
yeah, that one didn't get me.
Well, this one is a little bigger, I will admit.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so it's like, if that didn't get you either, just wait.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh, I didn't cry when I dropped my kid off to kindergarten. But for some people, it felt like such a big deal. It felt so symbolic. It was the next step. It was letting them go.
It is true that what many people I know who have gone through this before me say that first one is very hard. And then you yourself go through a transition to becoming an empty nester. The second one, you're like, okay, we're here now. This is what we're doing.
Well, I told you what happened when we dropped my oldest off at college, and then he was staying in the dorm. He went to the same college that my husband and I went to. And so I'm walking out of the dorm after saying goodbye to him, and I turn around and there's a classmate of mine that I was not really friends with. I mean, we knew each other's names, and he was also dropping his kid off. And my husband and my younger son were completely intolerant of my slobbering. And I see this guy named Rob, and I just like fall into his arms sobbing. And he was like, we haven't seen each other in 25 years. What the heck is going on here? It was really awkward. It was just so hard.
I dropped my daughter off at summer camp similarly. So I went to a summer camp that then my daughter went to, and it was a full summer camp. So dropping her off at camp was that first separation. So the separation of her leaving doesn't actually feel that challenging to me. That I feel like we have practice with that. It's the end of this specific chapter.
Yes, right. It's the symbolic nature of you are really saying goodbye to the family structure that you had.
When you think of your clients that you have helped with through this very month for years, what are some of the takeaways from other families that you've observed?
Well, I'll tell you, this is what I observed, is that families kind of do this transition in the way they do a lot of things. Your patterns show up. So as we have said, we're easy criers, and you're also very emotional, and you're also very insightful, and you have a lot of awareness and that kind of stuff. So you're talking about it. It's no surprise we're doing this episode and you're talking about it and you're crying, and you had that conversation with your daughter and you decided that you're going to both bawl to Landslide because that's how you do things. There are other families where it really, the pattern is, we'll be fine. This is not a big deal. We are not going to really express our emotions about it. And good job, child. Off you go. See you soon. And then there are other families in which the idea of letting your child go, you've never really practiced that.
Yes, that's what I wanted to also talk about. I've been I wouldn't say surprised, because I guess you've sort of prepped me. Sometimes been a little surprised by the level of involvement parents maintain in their kids' lives in college that I'm observing now in the college Facebook groups.
Tell us what you're seeing in the college, because that didn't exist when I never participated in that.
No, I don't think it really would have to the level that it has now.
Tell us some of the crazy stuff you're seeing in the parent Facebook group. That's what we want to hear, Robin.
Okay, well, so I don't want to sound judgmental, but I just wish that I could post the podcast so that people could recognize the importance of autonomy, right? I mean, it's an important skill. So it's like, my son is a junior and is looking for a roommate. Is your son still needing a roommate? It's like, he's a junior and he should figure this out.
Yeah. Is there anybody who's renting an apartment for the semester or the year so that they can be close to their kid?
Well, I just spoke with someone this week who says that they plan to move once their only child goes off to school.
To where their child goes off to school?
Correct. It's a big range. Here's the thing that I think is weird. The culture is so against you because, for example, parents are watching their kids fly to their school and they're like, their flight landed and they made it to the dorm and I'm tracking them on Life 360.
Yeah, right. I also hear things of, well, I know my child's class schedule and I know that they should be getting out of bed at 8:15 to get to their 9 o'clock class. So I'm watching to make sure that they're moving. I'm watching to make sure that they're eating breakfast, right? There's a level of micromanagement that is really beyond the pale at this point.
Absolutely.
But I bet, so with you being on this Facebook group, what percentage of the parents would you guess are tracking their kids with Life 360 or another tracking app?
Over half.
Over half. Yeah.
And if I were to say, there's a downside to that, I would get a lot of pushback. I mean, like, obviously, I'm not going to. I'm not an idiot.
Do it for me. Do it. Do it.
But the thing that when do you plan on not tracking?
Yeah. Can I create a fake parent persona? Can I be like Suzanne Milkins from Texas and go on and just say provocative things on your parenting Facebook? Please, please.
I mean, any of those, it would be great. They would quickly figure out that you were a troll, though.
This is the ultimate Michael Yapko question that he taught me. How do you decide blank? How do you decide that differentiation? How do you decide when your child is old enough to not be tracked by you? How do you decide when they're old enough to make their own dentist appointment? How do you decide? I don't think parents think about that. And I think the assumption at this point is if I have the technology to be fully informed of every aspect of their life, well, that's the way it's been since they were born. Why wouldn't I keep doing that? And I think where the culture is against me, it's not everybody, but this culture is certainly against me, is that the importance of developing autonomy, when we look at the development of autonomy, that is a precursor to all the things that we want for our kids. For them to have positive relationships, for them to be able to move forward in life, for them to not get depressed, for them to be less anxious, for them to be able to make good decisions and negotiate salaries and buy cars.
And problem solve and be resilient and be flexible and all of those things.
All of that stuff.
Well, that's the thing that I would want to say is, in what ways have you raised your child and modeled the ability to manage uncertainty if you are seeking certainty at every turn?
And if you haven't done that all along, then when you're sending them off to a foreign country or to a big university 10 hours away or wherever they may be going, if you haven't done that all along and now you think you're going to start. So for those of you who are listening to this who don't have kids leaving for college or don't have kids graduating from high school, heed our warnings and start doing it early, because it is really impossible to decide that your child is going to be autonomous and independent when they're leaving the nest if they've never practiced it. And if you've never given them the confidence or the ability to figure things out. Your kids, everybody, your kids should be able to wake themselves up and get themselves dressed and come down for school by the time that they're 8 years old or 9 years old, or at the tops 10 years old. If you've got a kid who's a junior in high school and you are still the alarm clock, the organizer, the breakfast maker, all that stuff, they're not going to learn how to do those things between high school graduation and the next big step. And you're not going to feel comfortable letting them do those things because you know they can't. That's what we have to pay attention to.
We did an episode on this, actually, like in the theme of the toxic college admissions process, where you were quite direct that just getting into the school, not everyone's still ready for college, even if they got that college acceptance. You have a ton of clients who are in college and they are still needing to develop critical skills to be functional college students. Give us a little truth here.
Right. And I think I said in that episode, and I'll say it again, is that if your child didn't really have a lot to do with the college admissions process, if they got that great college acceptance because you hired people to edit the essay 17 times and to prep them for the testing and to make sure that they had all their ducks in the row, if you were the person who got them into college, even more so it means that they haven't developed the skills to handle college. It is an ongoing process. How are you going to consistently allow your child to do things independently from the time that they're very little, so that by the time that they're ready to go off to college, they're ready to go off to college. We talked about having part-time jobs. There are many people in my profession who work with teenagers who say having a part-time job is one of the most important skills and opportunities you can give your teenager, because it develops all of that autonomy, all of that responsibility. And let me say this also, is that there are people who push back against me all the time because they're saying, if we have the technology, why would we not use it? If we can keep track of our kids, why wouldn't we do that? If we can monitor every grade, the student portal, why wouldn't we do that? If we can hire the mom concierge in the city where your kid is in college and pay $10,000 a semester for that person to be your mom in absentia, why wouldn't we do that? Here's why, everybody. The rates of depression and anxiety in our young people continue to rise. The reason we don't do that is because the skills of being independent, of problem solving, of knowing you can get through something, of knowing that you can hit a bump in the road, that it's not an emergency, it's a difficult thing that you need to figure out. All of those skills are depression and anxiety prevention. And we've got to start thinking about this as prevention rather than our kids never feel disappointed, frustrated, lost, unsure, uncomfortable. Prevention means that we give them the opportunity to practice, so then when the rubber hits the road, they've had the skills, they've had the practice, they've had the opportunity. That's what we're not doing when we use technology or we use our need to know everything. When we do that, we are setting them up. And we've just got to start talking about that realistically, because it's not working. It's not working. I keep saying that. Everybody, it's not working.
I think about the parenting brag that you have. One year, your son moved, changed all of his setup, and you didn't even know. You learned about it after the fact.
Yeah. Freshman year in college, I asked him how it was going with his roommate. And he goes, "Oh, you mean my new roommate?" I was like, "What?" Yeah. So his first roommate was really nice, but there were some difficulties with it. I've told that story before. And so he just found another roommate. One of his friends that he made at school, that kid moved out and he moved into the dorm room, and he never told me.
Right. He didn't need to tell you.
Yeah. Here's my other college brag. With my first son, I went to Bed Bath & Beyond with him to get everything he needed for his dorm room. And the total bill was $26.48. Yeah.
So what is it that you did have to buy?
Soap. I bought one of those little wire baskets to carry to the bathroom. He didn't have one of those. We got a shower caddy. I think it was like soap and shampoo, and he needed extra long sheets for his bed. So we had to get him a twin sheet for his bed. I'm sure it's different. I don't have girls. I have boys. We weren't like repurposing furniture and painting it so that he could have a sky blue end table in his dorm room.
There's a Facebook group for that. And I think it's called something like Dorm Room Mamas, where the moms are just like throwing thousands of dollars on those dorm rooms. I am not joining that group because that is a slippery slope. I was raised by an interior designer. That could get tricky for me.
Yeah. On a daily basis, there's something that comes into my awareness where I say to myself, "Oh my God, thank God I had boys." Today's "thank God I had boys" nugget is that there is a Facebook group called Dorm Room Mamas. I'm like, oh my God, thank God that I have boys.
Well, let's take a break. We'll be right back. Sometimes people wait until something bad happens to talk to a therapist, but why wait? Therapy can help you shift your perspective, find tools to cope in difficult times, and feel grounded in your personal relationships. So getting started is the important part. Talkspace makes it easy and affordable.
With Talkspace, you can sign up online and get a personalized match with a provider that's right for you, typically within 48 hours.
It's incredibly convenient to have virtual sessions with your licensed therapist from the comfort of your home, your car, your office. There's no need to commute to appointments and miss time at work or line up childcare in order to attend sessions. It's mental health care made easy.
That's right. And it's secure and private. They use the latest end-to-end bank-grade encryption technology to store client information, complying with the latest HIPAA regulations. Remember, Talkspace is affordable and it's in-network with most major insurers.
As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/fluster.
To match with your licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/fluster to get $80 off your first month.
That's Talkspace.com/fluster.
Hey there, I'm Debbie Reber, the founder of Tilt Parenting and the author of the book Differently Wired. The mission of Tilt is to change the way neurodivergence, whether that's having a learning disability, having ADHD, being gifted, autistic, or some combination of all of the above, is perceived and experienced so differently wired kids and the parents like us raising them can truly thrive. On the Tilt Parenting podcast, I get to talk with authors, therapists, educators, and parenting experts who are committed to this mission. I ask the questions my listeners are most curious about when it comes to supporting our kids. And in turn, my guests share strategies for challenges, out-of-the-box ideas for navigating school, best practices for therapies, tips for advocating, and so many thoughtful insights on what it really takes to help our kids grow up feeling seen and respected so they can create awesome lives for themselves. I know that raising a differently wired kid can feel overwhelming and isolating, but I promise you, you are not alone, and it can feel so much better. If you're on this parenting journey, come listen to Tilt Parenting. Together, we can shift this paradigm and show up for our exceptional kids with hope, possibility, and joy.
Okay, so now back to the show.
Okay, Lynn, so let's wrap this up, and I'm going to ask you as my sister-in-law and pseudo-therapist, just because I don't pay you, but this is a lot of emotion. What are some good do's and don'ts for parents in this situation? Because I think about other advice that you give about we should make sure that we're sort of centering the emotions of our kids and not overwhelming them with our own, and just like that basic tenet of emotional management. This is pretty tough stuff. So give me the guidelines.
All right. Your child doesn't want to help you get through their graduation. That's not their job. You can do it in front of them, right? You can get a little weepy like with your daughter and listen to Landslide. And it depends on your kid too, because your kid may really not feel this in the same way that you do. So don't project your emotions onto your child. Some kids are so ready to be done with high school. Some kids don't really care about graduation. Some kids don't even want to go to graduation. I think kids should go to graduation because I think it's a helpful ritual for them to move forward, but for whatever reason. So make sure that you are not projecting your huge, big emotions onto them. Control yourself. That said, make sure that you have people that you can totally be a blubbering, emotional person with if you need to. Make sure that you have friends, like you can talk to somebody who's already been through this, that you have that person in your life who says, oh my gosh, I totally get it. I totally get it. Be prepared. If you're a crier, be prepared at graduation. So don't wear mascara that is going to run all over your face and bring some tissues. Be prepared for your kids to have some strange reactions. Sometimes kids have to go out the door with enough sort of anger and irritation with you that it allows the disconnection to be less painful. Some kids do that. Be prepared for that. Be prepared for things to sneak up on you, which I think, Robin, you're exactly in that time where you're making an eye appointment and you start bawling. Just know that you're going to be kind of raw. You're just going to be kind of emotional. And that's okay, for sure. Look for opportunities. Okay, so now I'm going to cry.
It's okay to cry.
It is okay to cry, as Rosie Greer taught us in Free to Be You and
right.
Me, which is another 70s dating ourselves. It's okay to cry. Look for opportunities to say to your kids the things that you need to say. And I'm not talking about like big, huge, dramatic things. I talk a lot about being a seed planter. And a lot of times when we're saying these things to our kids during graduation, they're going to be like, oh my God, Mom, here you go again. They need to hear it. They need to hear the things that you want to say to them. They need to hear how much you love them. even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. I mean, sometimes people say, oh my gosh, we don't do that in my family, or it would be so weird, or whatever. Write a card, sit and write a letter to them and give them the letter. Make sure they hear it from you. One of the things that I think is one of the myths that really gets in the way is parents will say to me, well, he knows that. Well, he's heard that. He knows it. I don't have to say it. He knows it. No, say it. It is incredibly meaningful. As kids are moving out into the world, as you're ending this chapter, say it. Let them hear it from you. And they may brush you off. They may poo-poo you. Say it. Say it. So, so helpful. So important. Also recognize that there are people in your life who are not going to do this the same way that you do. And don't disparage them. There are people who are going to cry and people who are not going to cry. There are people who are going to care and people who are not going to care. That's okay. You do you. And make sure that you have the people around you, your friends or whatever, that can totally embrace whatever a puddle of emotions you are at the time. It's a really emotional time. It is. There was a video that a woman put out called The Blessing of an Ordinary Day.
That is why this month I'm such a wreck. I won't reread it right now. I already landslided myself.
Yeah, you did landslide yourself. Katrina Kenison, The Gifts of an Ordinary Day.
Yeah, that's why it's like those ordinary days, I have less than a couple left.
Right. So maybe that's sort of what we end with, is to remember that this is a big celebration and there's going to be pomp and circumstance and there's going to be proms and gowns and speeches and all that kind of stuff. The things that are going to bring you to your knees. Those are the ordinary things. Yeah. If you need a good cry, if you need to watch Steel Magnolias, if you want to just let it rip, you can put on Landslide. You can put on Steel Magnolias. Probably not Caddyshack. But The Gift of an Ordinary Day by Katrina Kenison. We'll put the link in the show notes. Particularly if you have boys, it will bring you to your knees, people. But maybe that's what you need. Do it if you need it, because it'll get the job done. And let me just say this. For those of you who are listening to this, and perhaps you are not celebrating the way that you had hoped that you could celebrate, that you've got a child that for whatever reason is not able to move forward now, and that you are feeling left out. You are sick and tired of hearing about graduation. You are sick and tired of hearing about kids moving on when for whatever reason your child is not there. Then we send our love to you as well. Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin.
I'm Margaret.
And I'm Amy.
And together we host the podcast, What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Margaret, I would say you're sort of a where are my keys kind of mom.
Correct. Sometimes a where are my kids kind of mom. Well, you're, Amy, more of a we were supposed to leave 35 seconds ago, mom.
I mean, touche. In each episode of What Fresh Hell, we come at a topic from our usually completely opposite perspectives. I bring the research.
And I bring kind of the gimlet eye. Like, is that research really going to work, people?
And almost 10 million downloads later, we're still laughing.
We also talk to experts in the parenting field, plus parents with stories we can all learn from.
We make each other laugh, we challenge each other's assumptions, and we have what we think is the best parenting community on the internet.
Check out What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood wherever you listen to podcasts.